Continuing to stand the man first with Stampede Wrestling. The NWA Canadian Heavyweight Championship 3 times in the Calgary version. The Stampede North American Heavyweight Championship once, and of course the Stampede Wrestling Hall of Fame. For World Championship Wrestling, not the WCW you're thinking of, there was a separate WCW in Australia, which was around for a while actually. Holder of the IWA World Heavyweight title once. And for the this is back in the day when the WWE was still the WWEHF. You can still technically say that because of that. The Worldwide Wrestling Federation. Their World Championship, which was at the time, I think around the time they were still a part of the NWA technically. So just the WWF Heavyweight Championship, not the World title. Because I know they were done being Capital Wrestling, so it was just the WWF. And at that time, it was a transitional champion, which was unfortunate for a guy of Stasiak's skill set. But at the time, it made sense because Pedro Morales held the title at the time. You wanted to take it away from him and give it to Bruno. And this would have been Bruno's second reign with the title, so it would have made sense to do it that way, much like they did with Bruno, with the to give it to Pedro with Ivan Koloff and that whole deal. So Bruno lost it to Ivan, Ivan lost it to Pedro lost it to who did I just say? Stasiak, and then it went back to Bruno for the second reign. So, and they held it for a while respectfully. I mean, in Ivan's case, in Stasiak's case, it was different because they just you're getting it to your bigger star to get the Madison Square Garden shows to be even bigger cards. And with Bruno, it'd be a guaranteed sellout, for sure. And, of course, the Hall of Fame under the Legacy Award. Another man that I'm not surprised that he's in the Hall of Fame is Lord Alfred Hayes. Now, many people may remember him as just the announcer, the man on the street, if you will. And utterly British, which isn't a bad thing. But, it's more the stereotypical British when he was in the WWF at the time. Which, of course, having the Oxford accent at the time made it even better to have that gimmick, even though it was annoying at times. However, and of course, many people might remember him as, being on Tuesday Night Titans as the epic man to Vince McMahon. So in that whole kind of talk show deal, it wasn't that bad of a show either, to be honest. But Lord Alfred Hayes was a manager as well, and had a decent wrestling career as well. And maybe people don't get to see this as often. But he had a great heel run in the AWA, and if you could find, there's hard to find tapes of it and hard to find footage of it, especially now with it being 2018. It's a lot easier to find that footage, but sometimes it's even harder to find the better versions of it. Even because the tapes have been stored over time and played over time, and they just break down and shit like that. But with the network, hopefully they can bring some of that back. I'm not really sure. But as far as him being managed by people, you can't get better than Bobby the Brain Heenan, for sure. But people managed by Hayes in the AWA primarily were people like Chris Markoff, the Masked Superstar, who would be of course, Axe of Demolition. Billy Robinson, one of the best of all time. The Super Destroyer. And, of course, the Super Destroyer 2, which was Sergeant Slaughter, I believe. Nikolai Volkov, and King James Valiant, who, of course, was the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant. For big time wrestling for world class, the Texas Tag Titles with the Big O. And not the Big O you're thinking of with Zack Ryder. It was a nickname for Cowboy Bob Orton. For British Championship Wrestling, their World Mid-Heavyweight Championship, and of course there was weight classes around the time of the European, most notably, World of Sport had several weight divisions, and of course the British Round Rule system, which is another topic for another time, but you had to be a tough son of a gun to be anywhere in the European wrestling scene, let alone the British wrestling scene. For Central States Wrestling, The NWA World Tag Titles, the Central State versions, once with Bob Brown and once with Robert Kirby. The Eastern Sports Association, the International Tag Titles with Mike Dubois. For NWA Western State Sports, of course, Western State Wrestling, for their heavyweight title 5 times, and their Western State Tag title 3 times, with Ricky Romero, Ricky Starr, and Nick Kozak. The Wrestling Hall of Fame, the class of 2014, obviously, for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the Inspirational Wrestler of the Year in 72, and for WWE, their Hall of Fame under the Legacy Award. Now, this is where it starts to get difficult to get these people. Dara Singh, one of the more notable names in Indian wrestling, from the 50s all the way to, what he is recently, and I think he's still alive. I want to think he's still alive. No, he was passed away in 2012, unfortunately, yep. And he was in his 80s, so he's going to go either way. But one of the more, and ironically, I don't want to use the example for one of our people on the Legacy Award, but Dara Singh would be the El Santo of India, if that makes sense, and that'll make sense because holy shit, his filmography spans over 50 years, including things like an adaptation of King Kong, an adaptation of, well, that's probably one of the more notable ones, and of course they'd be more popular in India anyway. And I'm not even going to try and fucking name these. I'm not even going to try and say this shit. Holy shit. These fucking names. It's ridiculous. But as far as wrestling goes, and of course he was in Canada as well for a while. For the Worldwide Wrestling Association, their World Heavyweight title. For Maple Leaf Wrestling, the NWA Canadian Open Tag titles with Yukon Eric. And Indian promotions throughout India and Malaysia other way. The Commonwealth Championship, the World Wrestling Championship, the Champion of Malaysia, which Malaysia had its own thing in the 50s there. And these, I apologize fully if I cannot pronounce this shit. Let's just go with the fucking first one. I apologize. I'm hesitating. The Rustam-e Hind, which would be translated the Champion of India, which is very simple enough. And on that list for that title, finally, the Rustam-e Punjab, which would be the Champion of Punjab, of course, in India, there. Which he didn't have. He didn't have the Zamana title as well. But still, if you were a champion in India, you had to be tough, especially in the 50s and stuff like that. For their Wrestling Observer newsletter, to their Hall of Fame '96, and to the Legacy Award in 2018. And when we come back, we will talk about the woman inductee of the Legacy Award, Cora Combs.